Awesome. Hey, everyone. Just waiting for a few more people to sign in, and then we're gonna get started. Really excited to welcome you here on our first SaaS event. This time we'll be focusing on growth. We have three amazing speakers that are waiting for you, waiting on the stage or in the backstage to share their story and knowledge with you. So I'm really excited to have everyone here. All right, so before we get started, I would love to tell you a bit more about what we do at Checker and Shine and what is this event going to be about. So let me just quickly share what I have, what I've prepared. Awesome. All right. So Checker and Shine is a community of startups and founders in the Czech Republic. And our mission is to narrow the gap between the large scale-ups, the shiny startups, the names you've seen on magazines and on the internet, and the gap between those startups, those stories, and the rest of us who are starting out, building our business, and want to learn more and connect with that community. We started about a year and a half ago, and we have a lot of different activities. So apart from events, both online and offline, we have a startup newsletter that goes out every month. We help interns find internships in startups. We connect our community together. We write interesting articles and interviews. We have a whole mentors network. And we're launching an accelerator starting next year, which I'm particularly really, really excited about. So our events are kind of built on three pillars, and that is education, inspiration, and networking. So we always try to combine at least the two in each event that we create. So today we're definitely going to learn a lot and get inspired by some of the greatest SaaS businesses that were built in the country. And of course, we'll have the networking session after this, which I'll talk about in a few moments. When it comes to our mentors, we have, I think, about over 30 mentors on our website already that are ready to help you. All our mentors work pro bono with our startups. So if you go to our website, you can just directly choose the mentor that you think will be the best suited for you, get in touch with them. You can schedule a session with them, invite them to a coffee, whatever works the best. I absolutely always recommend working with our mentors because they're all really inspiring. And we have our community. Our community has now over 1,200 members. It is a private community on Facebook. So I encourage you to join us there. So all the rest of the information can be found on our website, which is checkerandshine.cz. So definitely check it out. And yeah, I'm going to ask our speakers to come here to the stage with me, and we'll start with some brief introductions. All right, I see everybody logging in. Awesome. So welcome, gentlemen. It's almost a full gentleman panel tonight. Really excited to have you all here. So Peter, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Peter. So I represent ShopTed today, obviously. And just briefly description of the company and then what we offer. We are actually not a new startup. ShopTed is 10 years old and has a quite long history, growth speaking. And I'm sure we will come to details later. But we are a market leader among e-commerce platforms. We have 22,000 customers with annual revenue around 200 billion. That's our customers. Obviously, we have our company has different revenue. Now we are hitting around 200 million annual revenue, but it was not always so. Yeah, I think we will go into details later, but we have been experiencing significant growth in the last couple of years. yeah. And me, I joined the company back in 2016 as a chief customer officer, and I'm responsible for the service part that would span over customer success, part of sales, and customer care, obviously.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mateus, why don't you go ahead and tell you a bit more about yourself and Product Board?
All right. So my name is Mateus, right? I'm a growth product manager in Product Board. Before Product Board, I was a growth manager in Avast. And I've been living in Czech Republic for a while. I'm naturally Brazilian, right? I moved here to Czech Republic. And Product Board, as you guys might know, it was founded in 2014, right? We kind of create product management system for product managers. So we want to help product managers do better product management by centralizing product management into one place, into one system.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kirai, over to you, and tell us a bit about yourself and about Wallmine.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for the invite and for putting this awesome event together. So I'm the founder and CEO of Wallmine, and we are building an investment research tool. We're helping retail investors research stocks and cryptocurrencies, track their portfolio, and find new investment opportunities. We raised a seed fund from the Bay Area, from Susa Ventures, about a year ago, and are happy building and growing the product. So so that you guys get the picture, in the last 30 days, over 1.2 million people use Wallmine. And so I'm a software engineer by trade. I love building product. This is my passion, building and growing products. So I'm happy to get into the panel.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really, really happy about the combination. I love the different backgrounds and the stories you have. So I think this will be really an awesome discussion. All right, so let's kick things off. Thank you all again for the introductions. So Peter, I'll start with you again. When did you start building all the different growth mechanism, right? Tell us a bit about the growth history in your company.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I would use the mechanism, the word, because I think the growth is probably deeply rooted somewhere in the culture of the company. But let's start with the beginning. As I told you before, ShopTed is 10 years old, and I would divide the history of ShopTed into two parts: first 5 years and second 5 years. Mm-hmm. And during the first 5 years, we were a little bit. We had customers. We had a growing portfolio of customers, much slower growth than we have now, that we are experiencing now. But we are then stuck somewhere between 10 to 15 million of annual revenue. And the reason behind that, there are maybe more reasons, but let's keep it simple. Back then, we really didn't have that really well scalable product and market fit. And after the 5 years, we made some decisions. And then for my perspective, the second era of ShopTed started back then. And we started to scale the product very well and started to add additional streams of revenue. I'm not sure if I am answering actually your question. I can go into much more detail, of course.
Absolutely. So you would say that you actually started really growing after you found your true product market fit, which I think we'll talk about a bit more in the discussion going forward. But yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, but maybe Clara, just to add some more information, for the last 5 years, we have been growing at the rate of 35% annually. So that's more or less stable number now.
Awesome. And that's a big number as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mateus, can you tell me kind of when did you, how long it actually took you to find product market fit, and when did you kind of shift from being, a product company just working on the product to actually hiring people like yourself to help with the growth?
All right. So I'm going to try to do my best to give a bit of the story. This is mainly I started at our CEO, Huber Palan, and our CTO, Daniel. They're usually telling, but the basic story of Product Board, I think it took about 1 year or more for Product Board to develop a product that would be ready for the market, right? That would be validated. That would be a product that the users want. And over the time, I think it was 1 more year or so. I think I joined Product Board was in 2019. So it took a few years for product board to start investing in a growth team. But it doesn't mean that the company was not growing, right? So we call when you call about growth mechanism, I think most of the B2B SaaS products, they grow through word of mouth, right? First, you need to find a really big problem, right, that users have. So once you kind of found the big problem, you have a solution that solves that problem, right? You have product managers using it, starting from early stage startups, and through word of mouth, they start talking to other people, they start talking to other product managers in communities and so on. So this kind of creates this kind of word of mouth mechanisms that makes the product become aware, increase the awareness of the product, and make the product grow, right? Once you get through the stage of word of mouth, right, you're usually growing through a bottom-up motion. For example, users, they go to an application, they try the product, and they buy themselves, right? So once you get to a certain scale, right, that you define, you have a product market fit, you're retaining your customers, right? Your customers are not churning at high rate, what we call a flattened retention curve. That's the moment, I would say, usually SaaS companies, they are hiring dedicated growth professionals. Like in my case, a growth PM, or you can hire a VP of growth, right, a head of growth. That's the moment that you can actually scale your growth. So this would be like product board. So product board already passed this stage of word of mouth. So the company is kind of scaling its growth with different kind of channels, right? We are investing in demand generation. We are kind of trying to find outbound motions, right? Mm-hmm. So we're trying to find different channels so we can actually increase our revenue, increase our customer base.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So would you say it was kind of in the last 2 years that you moved to that stage?
Yes. I was the first growth person joining the company, right? Of course, before we had other kind of departments doing the growth role, right? We have product managers. They can work as growth people as well, right? Building the side of the product, and you have marketing departments and customer success, also working on this growth. As Peter mentioned, growth is a lot about a mindset, right? You need to build this culture within your organization, and then you need to decide whether you want to have dedicated roles for growth.
Absolutely. So again, it kind of took a couple of years to actually get there.
It takes a couple of years. As I mentioned, if you get to the retention curve to flatten out, so you're not losing that many customers, right? You have a flattened curve. That's the moment that you get a growth profession. Or some people would say when you get the product market fit right? So it means that your customers really want your product, they really love it, and don't want to leave you. So that's what happened to product.
Absolutely. And you're right. Tell me about the history of growth in your company. How did you decide on the strategy? Because I think you're one of the few platforms to have over 1 million users coming from Czech Republic, which I think is really awesome. So how did you decide on the strategy?
So the strategy was not to focus on growth in the first place. Exactly as Matheus was saying, you need to nail the retention first. You need to build something people actually want to use first, by doing things that don't scale, by not looking for magical growth trick that's going to fix your broken product, right? That's the number one thing. And if you think about growth as this metaphor of water in a jug, what is growth? Well, I mean, you're pouring water into a jug, right? Like if you have this huge hole in your jug, and essentially every second person or every person that tries your product ends up leaving in a day, obviously it doesn't make any sense to pour more water into the same jug, right? Like you would obviously fix the jug first. So for some reason, there are so many people who are searching for this magical growth trick that whatever Airbnb did, which is going to fix all their problems. And I don't think this is the case. So to answer your question, we focused on talking to people. I would obsessively watch every Hotjar recording or full story recording. These are both tools that record. I would try to underdo our competition. So, if there's an established company built in the space, you cannot beat them in feature by feature comparison, but you can build a better product with a subset of features for some particular use case. So I would try to do these things. And then when things get to a point when you don't know the story of every power user using you, then you start looking at metrics. And one of the first things you plot out is retention curve. And when people stick with your product, and you can, there's one thing, it doesn't really matter what metric you're tracking, they're all correlated, right? So you will see that okay, this is something where people are requesting more features. Like suddenly you don't need to push this huge stone up the hill, but people are asking you for more features. Can you build this? I mean, I would love to share this with my friend, but whatever, I need X. At that point, it makes sense to figure out, okay, how can we get this in front of more people, right? But that should be always sort of the second step.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, for you, kind of the crucial step for your growth, again, was to build the best product possible, right? Have it have the best possible retention, and then essentially start focusing on growth and ways to get in front of more users.
Yep, totally.
Awesome. And I actually have another question for you, Juraj, and that is, what sort of different strategies did you test in terms of user acquisition? Right? Because can you maybe name like one or two that were, maybe one that wasn't effective and maybe one that was really effective?
What wasn't effective? Buying ads wasn't effective. Because finance and insurance, so like 95%, 90% of our users are from the US. And if you try buying ads for finance and insurance, like it's one of those segments with the highest CPCs you can possibly get. So, you know, if our product is a freemium product, and a vast majority of people are not paying, that's the whole point of freemium model, right? So you cannot be buying this kind of traffic for $1 per click. I mean, you would go bankrupt really, really, really fast. So this is something that wasn't working, and this also an indirect answer to what was working. Well, we really quickly figured out that okay, if we are paying the marketing cost of releasing a freemium product, because that's also like you can perceive any free feature that you put out as marketing cost. If we're already doing that, it doesn't make sense to be paying for any other acquisition. So we need to find ways of growing the user base for free. So how do you do that? Well, you know, you focus on in marketing investments that you do once, and that keep sort of paying out dividends for a long time. One of them for us was definitely search engine optimization. The other one was referrals and making it really easy for people to recommend the tool to somebody else.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. Do you guys agree with ads not being the best way to acquire your customers?
This is not what I said, by the way.
Like, I know.
It is extremely hard to generalize these things, and here's the thing: like most amazing companies, like Product Board over here, Mateus, Product Board doesn't have a free tier, does it?
We do have a free trial now. We kind of launched a free product. That's our free customer portal. So that's we are kind of trying now to
fair enough. But you know, there isn't a free plan for your product. Yeah. So everybody actually using it is paying. And I would try to guess that if I looked at your retention numbers, that when somebody starts paying, they never leave. I would guess that as well because you have an awesome product. And so they have excuse my French, shit ton of money to spend on advertising. So in their case, it could be a wonderful way of driving traffic, right? It depends from company to company.
Absolutely.
If I may, just to give my insights on this, like I think using paid channels, like for you to scale, right? Your growth, your acquisition, it's a good tactic, it's a good strategy, but you should not rely only on paid, right? A lot of companies, they try to bootstrap just with paid. This is a big mistake, right? Because if something goes wrong, right, you increase your cost per acquisition. Like your business could be going down, right? So I think it's just we need to leverage these channels as ways to kind of amplify your existing channels.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Peter, do you have a freemium model on ShopTet or?
Yeah, yes, we have. But again, I would like to comment Juraj input. I'm so grateful that you said that there are like no overnight hacks or miracles, because I was thinking before this even about are there any hacks in the company, and I didn't figure anything out because it's just like daily. It's a session of small decisions that make sense in the long run. So back to the freemium model. Yes, we wanted to, and for a long time, we have 4 paid tiers and we have 1 free plan, and we wanted to allow one of the segments of the customers to enter to the product easily without spending a lot of money just to try it for a longer period than 30 days a long trial. But again, we have some income coming from this free model because free plan, because we have a marketplace, and many of these freemium customers actually tune their free platform with these add-ons. So again, it's not totally free.
Right. The free would be very, very basic, right? But then given the simplicity of how simple the product can be to use, they actually purchase extras, even though they are not on like a expensive subscription.
Exactly. In most cases, it doesn't, you need to play around with the freemium plan to actually, for most of the customers, to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree. I didn't intentionally position the question, what are your growth hacks? Because I also don't think that there are any hacks that you can do and magically acquire millions of users overnight. But we talked a bit about acquisition and what's crucial when you're starting out, and how to kind of turn over when you have your product market fit. Let's talk about the activation. And Mateus, I actually have a question for you. So how do you activate your users at Product Board? How do you make sure that they enter the product, understand what's happening, and actually start using it?
Okay, so maybe to start, I just want to kind of maybe clarify, because activation is a concept that is interpreted in different ways, right? Just to give you what I think it's activation. So usually we can call activation, that is the process for you to kind of get the users to realize value in your product or service, right, for the first time, and build a habit around it, right? So it's not just like showing the value to the users, but making them use your product and stick around, right? So they are retained with the core value proposition of your product. So when you look at activation, what do I do to kind of improve activation? So it's basically mostly related to onboarding, right? So if you kind of you're onboarding your customers, your users, in a way that they can realize value, in a way that they can get to aha moments, right, and build the habit, they're going to be sticking around. But if you're not solving a real problem, you're not ever going to manage to onboard them to experience this activation moment. So I would say activation of, for example, when you look at activation is so important. I would say in growth, I would consider that one of the most important areas of your funnel if you're looking to pilot metrics. Because if you don't manage to activate your users well, these users are not going to develop engagement and you're not going to retain, right? So usually one of the core problems that you have with retention is actually activation, right? So when you're looking into a company, where to optimize, in terms of growth, activation is usually the best place to start. Do I activate my users well? Because if you're not activating them, you're just spending a lot of money with user acquisition, right? And you're not going to be able to get these users to retain. So did I answer your question, Clara?
Yeah, absolutely. And that'd be actually a quick follow-up to how did you kind of build the onboarding in Product Board? When did you start building it actually from the beginning, and they just were sort of adding on? Are you still, developing the different routes users can take when they start using your product? What does onboarding look like in Product Board?
At Product Board, we start like onboarding the products. As I mentioned, the motion of Product Board, we call like product-led growth, right? That you're using your product as a distribution mechanism to acquire more users. So Product Board started with this motion, right? So we would use like what we call like a free trial, right? We would give users a 15-day trial. So they would be able to kind of try our product for free. So this moment would be the moment they would be experiencing the value and the features we offer. And one of the mechanisms we have, or the challenge with Product Board, like Product Board is not a simple product, right? It's not like, let's say Slack. Like for you to experience, for example, activation or aha moment in Slack, you're actually exchanging messages with your colleague, you're experiencing the channels, so you can get, I get how Slack works. I don't need email anymore. But with Product Board, we have like a system, right? That's helping product managers to manage their product life cycle. So we cover different use cases. So it's very hard for you to get users to experience value. So one of our strategies to onboarding was actually playing with walkthroughs, right? Product tours. So we're actually trying to educate the users once they kind of onboarding your product, through prompts, to kind of coach marks and checklists, to kind of go over some specific some specific features, so they can experience this value, right? So once you educate them how to use the product through the coach marks, right, through the walkthroughs, that's the moment that they're going to get to some stage of activation, and they're going to start building the habit around using your tool. Like before, in our case, they would build the habit around creating new features or prioritizing features using product board, or linking an insight to a feature. That's one of the core value propositions of product board, where users are actually collecting customer feedback and linking to the feature. So with that, we kind of manage to kind of optimize these moments to get users to activate better. You can also combine to the activation like that you do bottom up through the application. Some I would call like customer success or sales assisted onboarding, while like a salesperson or a customer success person is actually onboarding the customer through the product, which is usually more effective, right? We know that usually kind of converts 4 times better in terms of activation than just let steps.
Interesting, because I've seen many companies do generally like in-person onboarding, where they make you try all the different tips and tricks on how to actually use the product, which I think is very interesting. But again, then it's more time consuming for the company, right? In terms, not only time consuming, but in terms of resources as well. If you have 10 or a team of 50 people always on call, always guiding users through the platform. So I can imagine
very expensive. For example, one of the recommendations, if you want to use the onboarding assisted approach, you need to have a very, very high ACV, right? The average contract value, because otherwise, you're not going to be able to kind of sustain this type of onboarding, right? You're going to be spending a lot of resources on that. So this, I think, Superhuman was using some kind of human assistant onboarding, right? In order to get, because if you think about their ISP, right, they have executives, right? So they're expecting to monetize well. So they were experienced with this approach and worked very well for them.
Actually, I actually wanted to mention Superhuman and their onboarding. They're very precise and make you go through all the every shortcut that there is on earth on your keyboard to make sure that you're using it right and getting the most of it, right? Because that's learning to be efficient. That's kind of their I would say that's kind of their value. Thank you, Peter. What about ShopTet? And I remember us talking before the panel that you realized that onboarding was very crucial for your customers as well. Can you tell me a bit more about what onboarding looks like in your company?
Yeah, the activation part is extremely important. ShopTet is a highly complex product. So the customers need to be taken care of, and they need to be helped. And we do it in several ways. And we can divide it into like low touch help and high touch help. And low touch help would be like extremely well created help center where clients can go and read about the product themselves. Actually, we have a full-time employee who takes care of just maintaining and building this self-help center. And we are creating also other activities that help clients, like online meetings and lectures. And we could go deeper into that, but that will be the low touch. One more important thing, we also are very happy to have a Facebook group where are thousands of our clients, and they tend to help each other. That's really like the best thing that could help us, that we can have for the self-service of the clients. And the other part would be high touch, and this is where customer success and human touch comes into place. And we have like sales team which taps into like client segments where we can go with online marketing, for example. But then we also communicate with pre-selected customers, pre-selected segment of customers who are coming through online marketing, where for us, for the company, makes sense to actually spend some time with the clients and to talk about them. Not only this is very crucial from my perspective, not to talk about the product itself, but to talk about the business of the clients. because the product is only a vehicle for taking the customer where the customer wants to go. And as Matthias said, the customer needs to perceive the value from the fact that this is the vehicle that actually will take the customer to the goal he or she has. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I actually kind of want to take a minute and stop on the sort of the community part, because you've actually built a similar model to Salesforce, right? Where Salesforce has the core product, and then they actually have external partners that actually help you to implement the product, right? And I noticed your Facebook community works extremely well. You have a list of partners that will actually help your users implement the product. So you have basically resellers. So how did you actually come up with that model? Was it something, it was always in mind, or did you sort of come up with it along the way?
We were like 2-3 years ago, we were thinking like, how can we help the customers better? How well can we, because actually we are releasing new features faster than our customers can really, they just don't keep up. Some of the customers, there's the feedback from some of them. So we were thinking, how can we actually help them to maximize output from ShopTet, from the platform? And one of the ideas was, okay, let's create a marketplace with add-ons. Is one part. How to actually make the functionality of the platform even better, but also let's create a marketplace, so to speak, with agencies and contractors who can come and advise them with the platform and to make it their liking, And the platforms and the agencies, those agencies are obviously not part of the company, but we wanted to make sure that when we tell the customer this is an agency that we trust, we really can believe that we can trust the company. So we have actually a ranking system, and the agencies and the contractors must meet some criteria to get the bronze, silver, and gold badge.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's actually a great way to grow as well, right? Because then you if these agencies probably have a lot of ways to acquire new customers as well, right? And they automatically recommend you as the product provider, which I think is awesome.
And it is also related, if I may, it is also related to the big decision we made 5 years ago, because the first 5 years of the company, we were customizing eShops for the customers internally. So the development team couldn't really focus on the development of the core. And 5 years ago, we made the decision, okay, let's have a more standardized product. Let's leave the fine-tuning the eShops for the customers. And now the agencies do this for us. So that's great. So it's good for us, it's good for the clients, it's good for the agencies.
Absolutely. That's a great win-win, because I think every kind of startup that is in SaaS faces the great issue of getting a lot of money to white label features, and then not having developers to actually work on the core of the product. So I think that's actually a great way to do it. Thank you. And you're right, to you. What about Wallmine? How do you work with your users once they open your platform? How do you activate them? How do you make sure that they stay there?
Yeah. So you think about it, or we think about it as a funnel. So revenue and people on site and any metrics are one-way street. If you have a lot of revenue, you know that you are doing everything at least okay. You're doing marketing at least okay. Your product is at least okay. If you are having troubles getting revenue, you don't know what part is broken. So the number one step is to break it down. To think about the ideal customer or user journey in individual steps. Like, okay, what is the first step? Somehow they need to find any page of the product. Then somehow they need to get to a sign up page. Okay, they need to enter their details. And then they need to enter some basic info about their product, their profile, right? And then maybe you want them to do something like share the product with someone. So number one thing is to divide it in individual steps and see what the conversion rates between those steps in the funnel are. And you can immediately see, okay, well, a ton of people are signing up, but nobody is filling out their profile details. Well, maybe we're asking for too many things. So this is the number one thing. The other thing is that as you are designing your product, I would immediately think about it's called aha moment. There's this amazing talk about it from Alex Schultz, the former growth person at Facebook. And he describes the aha moment in any product as the moment when the customer gets it. This is, by the way, where in-person user interviews are amazing, because when you're demoing the product to somebody, or somebody is actually trying the product with you as you are sitting next to them physically, you can see them smile. You can see them actually say, "Oh wow, this is amazing." And once you identify what the aha moment is, you want to get as many people there to the moment as quickly as possible. One thing that comes along these lines is that there are many things that you can measure, and you should pick one that you decide the entire company is going to optimize about. Again, since I'm ripping all my ideas from Alex Schultz, he calls it the North Star metric. And again, it doesn't really matter what metric you really choose, whether that's number of unique users, number of sessions, or the length of those sessions, whatever else, because they're tightly correlated. But you should have one metric which is the main metric that you're driving the entire company around. Well, and when you do this, essentially, you just experiment and you try different things at those individual steps. And it's not really a rocket science when you break it down, if you have some idea about what's going on.
Absolutely. And actually, I have two quick follow-up questions, and then I'll we'll ask a few questions from the audiences, because there's a lot of questions coming in the chat. So you mentioned that there is one metric that you should follow. Is it a metric I set up as a founder on the beginning, and do I keep to that for many years, or should I kind of change the metric, as we go? How long? Because I think that, things change quite quickly in startups. So, maybe how often have you changed the core number that was driving you?
Well, I would start with the end in mind. So when you're really starting to think about building a new product, the number one thing you should think about is, okay, what do I want people to do? Who's the ideal person, and what does the ideal person do? Then that's your metric, right? I would be super careful about picking the right and the wrong metric. For instance, a wrong metric might be we want everyone. Say you're picking a metric for one particular initiative. In this case, your email campaign, and your one goal is to get people to click through the email to get to your product. Well, if the person designing the marketing campaign, the email campaign, has this one metric in mind, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to send you free emails in the morning and free emails in the afternoon. And more emails, more clicks. Obviously, that's not great. So maybe just clicks are not a great metric, because you should think about the overall customer experience. So ideally, you should have the metric in mind when you are starting to design the product. And let me tell you this. I was hiring a growth person recently, and they told me that in their first days that they want to export the product and find out what the aha moment is in our product. And I'm like, damn it, we are designing the product around the aha moment. It's not like I can retrospectively find out what the aha moment is. We did a lot of work to get a ton of people to the aha moment as soon as possible. So ideally, these are the things you would think about ahead of writing the first line of code and ahead of drawing your first wireframe.
Absolutely. And actually, that kind of leads me to my second question I had for you, because I know that you actually have a very small team, right? Given that you have over 1 million users, there is 8 of you in the company currently.
So it was 5, now it's 6.
5, now it's 6 people, which is really, really interesting. So,
but we are hiring. So if anybody's interested in this, It's wallmine.com/jobs, I think. Let me know.
Awesome. And I think everyone can then talk to you on the networking table as well. But actually, what I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned a couple of times that it's important to talk to users. And I would think that most of your team is technical, right? Other engineers, you yourself are an engineer. So would you encourage other engineers? Yeah, would you actually recommend that to other engineers to talk to their users? Because usually salespeople talk to users a lot, customer support or customer success talk to users a lot. Would you encourage the engineers to actually invest time into looking at their users' behavior, or even just talking to users on a call or in person?
Sure. I believe that when you are in the we are figuring it out phase, before product market fit phase, I don't think you should have a dedicated customer support team, and I don't think you should have a dedicated growth team. Your entire company is the growth team. Your entire company is the support team.
Absolutely.
And by the way, engineers have this notion that they're introverts and can't talk to people. That's not true. Like give them a chance and the proper guidance, and engineer can be an amazing support person, maybe even an amazing salesperson. So yeah, I absolutely believe in people.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we have a question from the audience, which is, how long did it take you to get kind of from your idea, from your MVP to your first signups and, to the first paying customers? Peter, do you know how long it actually took for Shopta to get it?
I can guess. It was 10 years ago. I was not with the company, and the first 2 years, I don't know the history very well. It would be just a wild guess. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Mateus, what about you? Would you know how long it actually took from the MVP to putting in the payment system and getting the first credit card numbers in?
So this is a very old question for me as well, because I joined the company way long. Like a few years ago. I'm not able to answer this question. Maybe it's a better question for Uri, right? Uri, you.
Yeah.
So actually, when we started designing Wallmine, Google Finance, the former old Google Finance, was just shutting down, and it showed this message to everyone. We are shutting down the service, and here's the link for you to download your data. And this was around the time where we were just thinking about doing something. So we obviously tailored the experience to this huge thing happening in the marketplace, and we created a custom landing page that ended up being first in Google for Google Finance replacement and Google Finance alternative, and we got a few tens of thousands of first users just from this initiative, because it was super easy for people who were looking for alternatives. We gave them the alternative. It was one click for them to import all their data. They were all set, right? So, but frankly, I see many people, and mainly engineers, developing solutions. And my favorite question is, okay, so say tomorrow you have an amazing product. Your product is 100% done. It's perfect. It's just great. How are you going to distribute it? How are you going to grow it? How are you going to get it in front of people? And I believe that this distribution question is one of the questions you should have an answer for when you're starting the company, right? So your very first users, well, you do things that don't scale. You talk to your, your friends, your former colleagues. You do everything you can to get this product in front of potential customers. But it doesn't happen by accident. You should have some strategy for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that it's always the rule that the best products win the market. I think it's always the question of strategy, right? Because we actually had an event a few weeks ago, and one of the investors said that if the best product would take over the market, Bill Gates would not be Bill Gates. He just had a really awesome strategy to get Office onto every laptop within an IBM computer. So I think that's absolutely true. I actually have a last question, and we have a lot of questions directed to our speakers individually. So again, before I ask the last question, which will be on the key learns and kind of recommendations for the SaaS founders listening to us, I wanted to quickly remind everyone, when we end today's session, you will all be directed into our social lounge, where you will find a couple of networking tables and also tables where each of our speakers will have a seat. And you can ask them your questions there as well. We'll keep that for about the Q&A for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we'll all see you there after. All right, so let's get to my last question, and that is, what are kind of your biggest learns in the years of working on growth, and what would be your recommendation to the starting founders that are listening to us? And Mateus, I'll start with you.
Okay, so this is a very wide question, right? So there's so many learnings. One of my core learnings, like by being growth, right? As I mentioned, I was as a growth manager before in Avast. I moved from a big tech company, to a startup. It's a big change from B2C to B2B. And I think like the core lesson I had, I tried to apply a lot of things I learned in the B2C world to the B2B, and they didn't work. So I think growth, is very specific to the business you are working on, to the product you are working on. So for you to kind of to build growth, right, and to scale growth into your product, you really need to understand the growth mechanisms that your product have, and you really need to pick the right problems to solve, right? I think growth is closer to product management than it is to marketing, right? Because if you solve the right problem, if you tackle the right opportunity, right, you're going to be able to unlock growth, right? So I think this was one of the core lessons. Another thing that I think is very important for growth professionals as well. A lot of people, they think that growth is about growth hacking, right? As we talked about the tricks that you do to grow, and that's just purely marketing, right? Purely distribution. I think one of the core lessons, by being in the industry, that growth, it's a very, very interesting line like that you have between product, marketing, and data, right? And customer success, right? So when you combine those together, you get growth. For every type of business, for every type of product, you have a different, strength, so you need different skill sets. So I think I would say this is one of the core learnings. And last, I would say, a lot of people, they think about growth as funnel. To disagree a bit with Uri, he mentioned about building the funnels. I think, it's lesser about the funnels and more about the growth loops that you build, right? A funnel, right? You put something in the top, right? And at the end, you have just a few left, right? So you're losing some users on those steps of the funnel. They're dropping off, right? But when you think about growth, not as a funnel, but as a loop, that's the moment that you kind of unlock some mechanisms to grow more and more. I'm going to give an example. For example, you can think about a growth loop for word of mouth, right? If you activate better your users, right, you're activating more, you're getting them to aha moments, to build habit around the value proposition. They're going to be happy, and they're going to talk to their PM friends about our product, that they're going to talk to other friends about product. So you're building a loop that for every new user that you get to your platform is going to generate more users through word of mouth, right? And the same thing applies to channels, right? If you get new users, if you get to invest in channels that are having return, right? The more money you put in your paid advertising, if you're managing to get this lifetime value, you're going to create this cycle. So I would say growth is about loops, not about funnels. That's it. That's one of the
Awesome. Thank you so much. Uri, over to you. What would be your recommendation to the young founders in our community?
Sure. I think I mentioned most of them, but I can quickly recap. So build an awesome product first by doing things that don't scale, by talking to people, by obsessively caring about building something people want. The second step is think about your about the ideal path of a customer as a funnel, and think about those individual steps, and optimize. And bear in mind, there's no silver bullet. There are just many lead bullets. And myself, I love to focus on marketing growth strategies that work in a way where you invest once and reap the benefits forever, right? Because time flies really fast. And even though when you start the product, a few weeks from that point might look like a really long time. Time flies by really fast, and when you focus on the growth initiative where you invest once and reap benefits for a long time, you'll be well positioned to grow in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. And Peter, to you, what would be your final words, learns, or recommendations?
Yeah, I think it's three main points, and I completely agree with the guys. I'm a strong believer in creating like listening culture when we don't only listen and speak to customers, but also to the colleagues inside the company. I think leadership and culture goes a long way in this. And I guess at the beginning of the startup, the founder or the CEO, it's a lot of stress. And I really admire all the CEOs who just are under tremendous pressure, but the team can never tell, And I think this goes a long way and create a culture where people in the company are not afraid of speaking about anything, about sharing ideas, about using the customer care as the first line of information about the product, and so forth and so forth. And the second thing, actually, I mentioned more things than what I want said right now, but let me think for a few seconds.
Yeah, and I actually remember you mentioning the growth mindset, right? That has to be kind of a culture in the whole company.
It is, and I think I'm really grateful for that the founders in ShopTet have a complete trust in the managers, and we also have complete trust in team leaders and so forth. So the information, and now ShopTet is more than 100 people, so obviously the information sharing gets more and more difficult. But still, we don't feel like we are going into middle-sized company. We'll still feel like we are in a startup because the information channels are, it works. We share a lot of things, and it actually helps us. It's those little things that are really important, Clara.
Absolutely.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
I would just say there are amazing resources about everything that we've been talking about online. And this wasn't the case 5 years ago. And right now, I would, if somebody's listening and is passionate about products, passionate about growth, I would just encourage you to open the YouTube university and type in Y Combinator and watch all their videos. They have top-notch people, and there are amazing resources from everywhere. But Wise is the one place to start with, and they have amazing talks from the top-notch people in the world talking about these things that we just covered in a really huge depth. So a ton of resources. Go and explore.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. It was really awesome to have you here. So much knowledge, so many different experiences, and thanks to all of our listeners. So we will now do the networking session, which means we'll all kind of spread out into different rooms where you can ask questions. So definitely be mindful, be respectful when asking questions. And again, big thanks goes to our speakers. And I'll see you in one of the rooms. Thank you so much, everyone.